daily, plus flexible financing options for every budget. We've got the credit. The Sheeler Motor Mile delivers choices. The Liberty 250 savings event on the Sheeler Motor Mile. I-81 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com. Example 2009 Chevrolet Impala stock number KA260134B plus tax tag title and $697 processing fee.
The clock is ticking. Time is running out for Virginia citizens to purchase modern sporting rifles and magazines from Big Boys Guns. Beat the July 1st deadline. Right now, the selection is robust at Big Boys Guns. ARs, AKs, and the most popular handguns will soon be banned from sale in the state of Virginia. Don't wait. Visit Big Boys Guns before the inventory is gone and not allowed to return. Shop 24/7 at BigBoysGuns.com and in store on Route 460 in Blue Ridge.
Hey guys, this is Chad Hassan with ASeaofRed.com. ASeaofRed.com is the #1 trusted independent news source for Flames sports. You can get access to premium content such as the Rumor Mill by becoming an ASeaofRed.com club member for only $84 a year. If you are a diehard Liberty Flames fan and want all the inside scoop, along with coverage of recruiting and all the major sporting events over at LU, visit ASeaofRed.com. Go Flames.
You're stepping into the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app, 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg, or by asking Alexa or Google Home, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane.
There's certain discussions in sports media that just get brought up again and again. We're not going to go down the LeBron versus Michael road once again here in the Fast Lane. That is just your default discussion for a lot of sports media people, particularly when we're, Monday, June 29th, and there's not a lot on the mainstream sports calendar. I used air quotes and said it sarcastically because, yes, we are, in fact, in the World Cup, and plenty of people are enthralled by that. We will have World Cup dates in the Fast Five at 5-ish in just a moment. And yes, I used my quotations while forgetting that I just now logged on to our web stream to get my glorious video along with JJ's delay of game on me, using the symbol for those that are amused and watching. But the other debate is dynasties in sports. Now, when you look at the NASCAR dynasty of Shane Van Gisbergen, this is not a full-fledged dynasty. A full-fledged dynasty, the last one was Jimmy Johnson winning consecutive championships almost 2 decades ago. The last dynasties were Darrell Waltrip, Dale Earnhardt Sr., my guy, Richard Petty, David Pearson. And some of those came in an era where there really were not a lot of challengers. I did forget, but I shouldn't forget to throw Jeff Gordon's name into that mix as well. Dominant multi-time champions and consecutive champions in almost all those cases. Those were dynasties. This is a mini dynasty. Shane Van Gisbergen hasn't won a race outside of a road or a street course. He has improved drastically in those positions, but he hasn't quite gotten over the hump. But yesterday, even toward the end of that race, where his tires are wearing, you can clearly see it's impacting the handling of his car. By the way, shout out to TNT. Great job dissecting what transpired and explaining it for those of us that were paying attention. But you could tell it was an issue. That being said, Shane Van Gisbergen maybe inherently knows how good of a road course racer he is, because he knew that could be an issue, and it seemed like he had a plan knowing that Chase Briscoe was behind him.
I don't think he's that sort of driver, but if there was a lap or two more and he was, he would have been closer, I would have been in trouble. And then, I would have had to start defending and probably deserved to get moved. So I'm really thankful it wasn't 1 or 2 laps longer, but he's a guy I have a lot of respect for, and it seems to come back the other way too. Every time I race him, he's awesome to race against. So, yeah, I knew it would have been a good battle if he did get there.
Shane Van Gisbergen speaking with FrontStretch.com after the race. We'll have their reporter that was on site, Thomas Dunn, not to be confused with my hairstylist, Thomas Dunn. But Thomas Dunn will join us around 5:50 today here in the Fast Lane. And then we also had the discussion about the other side to this, which is, Shane Van Gisbergen is aware that if that race went further, there could be an issue. But there's the other element to this that he did not bring up. You have to tip your cap to SVG. Can't spell savage without SVG. Came up with that for our Trostall.com fast take earlier today. Cheesy as it is. But you got to tip your cap because part of it is, as Shane Van Gisbergen noted, well, if the race went 2 laps longer, he also knew the race length was not 2 additional laps. It was 125 laps and not 127. Overtime would have changed the strategy for everyone. That goes to his expertise. And the fact that Briscoe, even afterwards, mentioned to frontstretch.com that he had the better race car compared to SVG, but it's SVG.
I didn't feel like I was really that bad under braking, but then at the end, I just kept pushing it, like I said, extremely hard. I knew that was the one thing. If I could just try to make him get pressured in, and I honestly kind of baited him into it there on the white flag into 7. He kind of missed, and I just unfortunately missed with him. So, my braking was really good. My car was, like I said, it was phenomenal. It was the best car. I definitely felt like I had a better car than he did. I just didn't do as good a job driving.
So I had a better car, but I didn't win. Why is that? Well, in the words of Chase Briscoe, to use a different sports comparison, we use NASCAR Dynasty. Again, Dynasty's good in sports. I think in the modern era, you have to take that with much more of a grain of salt than back in the day, because there are more entertainment options. And if people get sick of seeing the same driver or team dominate in any, they just go somewhere else. Like, it's probably the biggest difference than ever before, even if the person's got a captivating personality, because it's a challenge. Now, it's better when that's the case. But Chase Briscoe alluded to the fact that, part of why he couldn't get by SVG is it's SVG on a road course.
I think that Shane is one of the greatest road course drivers in the world. The F1 crowd probably doesn't want to hear that, but he's an unbelievable rotor. He's an unbelievable race car driver, even on the ovals, just what he can do. And then when it comes to tire management, I feel like he is the best in the world. It is unbelievable just how he can make speed but also save tires. So, just frustrated with myself. I felt like I was playing one-on-one against Michael Jordan. I had the lead, and I didn't have the lead, obviously, but I had every opportunity to beat him, and I blew it. So, you got to be perfect to beat Shane, and I wasn't perfect at the end of the day.
Playing one-on-one against Michael Jordan, like, there is an element of intrigue in that. At no point did I think that SVG was going to lose the race yesterday. As somebody, to get my usher on, who may or may not have gotten in on SVG to win that particular race, I had him in the Xfinity or the O'Reilly race as well. Just part of my logic behind both of those, if you're curious, is he had a disastrous weekend last weekend. And again, the best competitors, when they have a disaster, often bounce back with a victory. And they right the ship. And SVG on a road course, after losing on the street course of San Diego, I thought it was reasonable to say he's probably going to bounce back and right the ship, which he did, sweeping the weekend at Sonoma. But a lot of this is also masking the fact that he is still the best road course racer in NASCAR, and is doing this in spite of the fact that, as Jimmy Murray noted on the TV broadcast on TNT afterwards, the gap is closing, but it hasn't fully caught him.
SVG has been dominant, but the last couple of weeks, even though he's been in a position to be able to win, he's not just crushing everybody. It seems like that gap is closing up a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that's hopeful for everybody watching that wants someone other than Shane to be able to win.
And Jimmy Johnson, 7-time champion that he is, alluded to this as well, that SVG's presence, and this is where I think dynasties can be beneficial in sports, has made the field better.
I remember when we had road course ringers and the regulars had to get better. I would assume Shane is dragging this entire field into a better road course race.
And see, to me, JJ, that's the fine line. If nobody is catching up and you're thoroughly dominating, it's boring to have a dynasty. But if you're compelling others to get better in whatever the sport is, at least from my perspective, that's where it's good, because you have a clear standard of greatness, but it's not like it's just greatness respected. It's greatness that's being challenged. And that greatness, SVG, is elevating his game while others are elevating. And then it becomes a legitimate challenge to greatness. It's not just greatness walking over everybody, which that's when it just becomes boring.
Yeah, fully agree. I mean, I think the best thing you can have in sports is a bit of a balance of dynasty and parity. Like in the NBA recently, we've seen 8 years with 8 different champions. I mean, that's exciting. Everyone remembers the individual years. But in the grand scheme of things, dynasties are what goes down in history. Those go down as the greatest athletes, the greatest teams. So dynasties are absolutely a necessity. And I think, like you were saying, in NASCAR, we're looking at the perfect balance right now.
Well, I mean, let's use the NFL, the most popular sport, as an example. College football is different because it's just now had parity invoked because now more schools can pay players, whereas some, Alabama, may have just been paying under the table. Now everybody's paying above board. So talent is getting spread out further. Best teams, best programs are still good, but they're not on that dominance. The NFL's had this. Tom Brady in the Patriots. And we got to emphasize Brady because he also did it in Tampa. Belichick really hadn't done it without Brady. Not that he didn't play a role, but the results speak for themselves. And then Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. Like, those are dynasties, but in each of them, they were challenged in their runs to championships. They were challenged on the biggest stage, and they overcame that. And that's where you can appreciate it is there was a moment in all those where they might not have won their championships. Yes, little bragging because Philadelphia knocked off both of those dynasties, Brady and the Pats, Mahomes and the Chiefs. But in doing so, they had to elevate their game like everyone else because of the dynasty. And that's where the dynasty is good, JJ. It forces people to rise up, but there's a legitimate challenge and threat. And that moment of, oh, they might not get it done, but they get it done in spite of the stiff challenge, that's when you can appreciate it.
Yeah, and even in the instances what they didn't get done, thinking about back to those Eagles Super Bowls against the Pats, against those Chiefs, those are some of the most memorable Super Bowls in recent history because they were the dynasty killers. They took down the team that's won so many times, and it makes it even more special when the dynasty doesn't win. But at the same time, when they do, you can just look up and say, wow, that's greatness. We're watching one of the greatest teams ever. So yeah, the NFL, kind of like you were saying in NASCAR, is in a really great spot as well with the balance of dynasty and parity.
Well, I think a lot of it, too, also goes to the fact that you want there to be legitimate threats and challenges to that. You know, I look back in the example, like when the Golden State Warriors, before they added Kevin Durant and once they added Kevin Durant, before they added Kevin Durant, they won, they were challenged, they elevated. When they added Kevin Durant, they just had such an advantage over everyone. To me, at least, it became kind of boring. Like, oh, appreciate greatness. Yeah, but you kind of bought your way to it, and it kind of stunk. Baseball's on the verge of that challenge. If the Dodgers get to the postseason and obliterate everyone this year, sorry to our Dodger fans that are out there, but that to me is, last year was great. They were legitimately challenged. They rose up, and they showed what a dynasty's like. That's entertaining, and that's greatness you can appreciate. If they're blitzing people in any sport, that's when people tune out because there's not any, I'm going to curse for a second here in the fast lane, hope that somebody can challenge them. And that's what, NFL example. We just referenced the Pats with Brady, and you can put the Bucs in there with him too. The Chiefs with Mahomes and Reed. Those dynasties compared to the Cowboys of the 1990s.
It's looking a little bit like those Dallas Cowboys as peaking in the 90s.
Or the 49ers and the Washington, former name redacted, in the 1980s, where they were dynasties and won multiple championships. But gosh, those Super Bowls were atrocious. Whereas for the most part, outside of the one Philadelphia trouncing of Kansas City in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, every other time, Super Bowls involving Brady and Mahomes, I think we've got like 10 or 11 of them now with them. I believe it's 11. Mahomes has lost 1. He's won 3. Brady has won 7, lost 2. Please forgive my math on that. Whatever it is, over 10.
13.
12 of the 13 have been really entertaining. And that's where you're like, okay, we're getting treated to greatness, but occasionally that greatness falls, and it makes you appreciate it that much more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's just great to watch every time. Without the greatness in the first place, there would be no greatness to fall, like you were saying. And those Mahomes teams, especially, they become widely hated, but everyone's still tuning in to watch the Super Bowl just on the off chance they watch. A lot of people call it hate watching when dynasties are around, but that's something you see, and they bring eyes to the sport. But like you were saying, at the end of the day, in the championship games and the big games, you want it to be close. You want it to be exciting. The dynasties have to be great, but they can't be so great like the level of those 2017-18 Warriors teams where they're just blowing all the teams out the water. And as you mentioned, I'm a little worried about the Dodgers in baseball that we may end up at that point.
Well, part of the worry also is there's more entertainment options than before.
Mhm.
So people will appreciate dynasties, but they want there to be a legitimate challenger to them, or else this is boring them on to something else.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the Dodgers, I don't know if we're really seeing that right now. I think they're head and shoulders the best team in baseball, but NFL, NASCAR, NBA, everywhere else, I think we're seeing a genuine challenge to the best teams out there.
And to me, that's fantastic.
Oh, absolutely.
It's really compelling theater when that happens. Or even sports like the NHL, where you've had Tampa Bay or Vegas or Florida win multiple championships. They win a couple, but then they fall off and someone else rises up. And look, there's an element of parity in the sense of there's challengers, but there's still a class of teams in almost all these sports where they're always up there in the mix. I mean, I think in the NBA, for example, you're going to probably have the Spurs and Thunder in the West as the standard bearers for quite a while. The Knicks, if Boston can get healthy, maybe Indiana, same thing in the East, you'll have that. But you kind of know they're all likely to be there for a while. The NFL, I mean, the Rams, the Eagles, the Seahawks on the NFC side, the Chiefs on the AFC side, like there's enough of it to go. The odds are one of those teams are going to be there, but there's at least a path to challengers, and that's where the interest gets exciting, and that's where challenges go. Speaking of challenges, boy, they've been some challenging but exciting World Cup matches. We get to that right now in...
It's time for Fast Five at Five-ish. 5-ish minutes on 5 relevant topics done around 5 p.m.-ish. Ish, because our counting skills are kinda ish. Let's start with number 5.
We will get to this with Lucas Paulini in the back half of Covering the Commonwealth Part 1. So in about 15 minutes or so here in the Fast Lane. We're into the knockout round of the World Cup. So far, it's delivered. If you have regulation draw on your bingo card, you got to be kicking yourself because Canada gets a late goal to knock off South Africa in stoppage time. Otherwise, it would have gone to not golden goal, but it would have gone into extra time, overtime, essentially. And we had the same thing basically happen today. 5 minutes or so into stoppage time, Brazil gets that second goal to get a 2-1 victory over Japan that ended up holding off toward the end. But if you like good, entertaining matches, they have been that way so far. I like this. I think top to bottom, this has been one of the more entertaining World Cups, and I'm excited to see JJ, as a casual fan, that the knockout stages are delivering on that in the early going.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I said earlier a few weeks ago in one of our shows, I think the World Cup is the pinnacle of sports, and we're getting to the best part of the World Cup right now. The knockout rounds, there's just nothing like it. We had worry from Brazil earlier today. They fell down 1-0 to Japan. They ultimately came back, as you mentioned, got a last-minute winner from Gabriel Martinelli to win the game. But actually, right now, Germany and Paraguay are playing, and about 8 minutes ago, Paraguay just took a 1-0 lead over Germany. We've got an upset watch brewing over there right now. Something to keep an eye on. They're about to get to halftime.
I was counting on you, JJ, to fill in the blank on what was going on in that match, since I have to talk and try to stay focused.
Mm-hmm.
And you did that. So we're appreciative of that here in the Fast Lane. Meanwhile, that was just in from JJ. Speaking of this just in,
Number 4.
2 things this just in. One, Grizzlies trade Ja Morant to the Portland Trailblazers, big NBA trade that's happened earlier today. On the surface, is this Memphis just getting tired of Ja's antics and the Ja Morant away from the court getting in the way of Ja Morant, the basketball player?
Yeah, I think the Grizzlies are just ready to turn the page on Ja Morant. They did not get especially eye-popping package back. They just got back Jeremy Grant and Chris Murray, no one who really moves the needle in terms of a rebuild, but they didn't get back any draft compensation at all in the trade, which I think is interesting. But I think it is more so, but they're tired of Ja. They just want to turn the page and get to the next chapter.
The flip side to this is, do you believe this? I don't know enough to know whether this rumor is true or not. But do you believe the rumor that part of the reason why Portland didn't give up a lot is they're saving a lot of assets to ship to Boston to get Jaylen Brown and pair with Ja Morant?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do think there's some substance to that rumor. I hear they're willing to give up a good amount of draft capital to Boston. My thing is, I think Jeremy Grant was initially going to be involved in that trade with Jaylen Brown just to make the money line up. So maybe now they'll have to throw in Drew Holiday or someone like that. They do have a logjam at point guard now, having Dame, Ja Morant, and Drew Holiday. So it's interesting to see. I do not think the Blazers are done making moves anytime soon.
Your second, this just in for number 4 is, within the last hour, the Detroit Lions released cornerback Terrion Arnold. He is the first-round pick of 2024's NFL draft, which ironically was held in Detroit. He's the first one to get released. He has been granted $1 million in bail for allegedly setting up an armed robbery and kidnapping as revenge for a prior robbery. I've done a TroSlaw.com fast take on this because, never mind that you're on a 4-year, $14 million contract. Pride and principle. Beat my chest. You'll not do that to me without revenge. Take precedent over somebody cooler heads possibly getting in his ear and saying, dude, I understand, the code may be to get revenge, but you're a multimillionaire. Maybe you should just let that situation go by the wayside. You want to call the cops, great. If you want to just let it go, let it go. But this is one of those where, look, I get it in the streets. Revenge is often a big deal, but it's often a big deal because those people don't have a lot to lose. You have a lot to lose, and you have now lost a lot of it if you're Terrion Arnold, and it's sad and it's disappointing. Nothing officially has been done, but when you're cutting them back quickly the way the Detroit Lions have, I think, first of all, again, they didn't want the distraction of Terrion Arnold participating in camp while waiting this type of serious charge hovering around him. I can't imagine he gets picked up by anybody, at least in the short term, while this is hovering above his head.
Yeah, I mean, not a surprise at all here with the release, just based off the charges that's been filed. And you've got to wonder at this point, will we see Terrion Arnold come back to the NFL at some point? I'm really not so sure anymore.
I have very big doubts about that. Speaking of the NFL,
Number 3.
sad nugget that dropped earlier today on Good Morning America about former NFL running back Chris Johnson revealing he's been diagnosed with ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. What's harrowing to me about this is he's not like a Derrick Henry. That's the example that came. Like, I'm not trying to say it's going to happen, but there are a lot of players that play the game physically at all sorts of positions. And if you sat there and said 10 years after their career, they contract ALS and need to have some kind of modern technology where you can look at the words to create your sentences and then use AI of your voice before it gets taken away from you to communicate. There are a lot of players where I could believe it. Even in the modern era of the NFL, this is not one of them. And that's what's harrowing about it. Like, Chris Johnson won with speed, athleticism, agility, breakaway, Olympic style of play, not the physical beat you up style. And yet he's a victim of ALS. Again, it's not going to happen to everyone in sports. This is me not knowing him from the outside. It does not seem like he's the type of guy that took chances with himself physically by partying and engaging in substances, which I can't believe would be an asset to extending your brain life. Again, I don't know all that, but I can imagine it helps. That's where it's really concerned. I don't think it's going to happen to everybody in football, but this is one of those, oh my goodness moments.
Yeah, if this is happening to an elusive back like Chris Johnson, I mean, you got to wonder what's going to happen to Derrick Henry or someone like that in the long term. I mean, this is not a bruiser at all. CJ2K was a guy who used speed to beat defenses, and if this is going to happen to him, it's really concerning going forward. Just hoping for the best for him.
Number 2.
Wimbledon today. To be honest, really not a lot of upsets that took place. Novak Djokovic just polished off in 4 sets. YB Wu, that is correct. It's his name. He's a Chinese, really pretty powerful and athletic. But Djokovic did enough today in 4 sets. The real almost upset was Jannik Sinner needing 5 sets. He had not played since bowing out of Roland Garros with the 2 sets and 5-1 in the 3rd set lead over Juan Manuel Cerundolo. Clearly looked rusty today. I thought he might be a little more crisp and motivated, and I'd imagine that'll get turned around. Weather doesn't seem to be a factor, but those were the big ones. Outside of that, and Emma Raducanu and Jack Draper, 2 Brits that withdrew from the tournament because of prior injuries popping back up again. I mean, do you count Casper Ruud or Cam Norrie losing as upsets? That's probably it. Otherwise, everyone pretty much won handily. On the women's side, Coco Gauff, Naomi Osaka, Arina Sabalenka all won in straight sets. On the men's side, Daniil Medvedev, Virginia product Rafael Hodar, Stefanos Tsitsipas, who just got rid of his dad as a coach. I'll believe it last when I see it. All of them are the type where you go, maybe this could have been worse, but instead it's kind of an uneventful day on that front. Meanwhile,
Number 1.
just a programming note, but the Golics are coming back to ESPN Radio. They will have a 10 a.m. to noon show, Mike Golick Sr. and Mike Golick Jr., that returns to ESPN Radio, 10 a.m. to noon, starting August 1. So just file that away in the back of your brain, much like filing away in the back of your brain when we return in the Fast Lane, covering the Commonwealth, JMU, Virginia, and the Hill City FC World Cup update. All that when we return here in the Fast Lane.
Don't miss the Make This the Summer sales event going on now at Magic City Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Bedford, with rebates and discounts saving you up to $7,000 on new Ram 1500s, or save up to $5,500 on new Jeep Grand Cherokees. Shop over 175 pre-owned vehicles priced to sell fast, many with limited warranties. Our Make This the Summer sales event is on at Magic City Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, 1750 Independence Boulevard in Bedford. MagicCityBedford.com. See dealer for details. And 6/30/26.
Learning for your family isn't just a school year thing. This summer, teach smart money habits that last a lifetime. Open a youth or basic savings account at Farmers Bank and help build a strong financial future from the start. It's simple, safe, and a great way to turn small savings into big opportunities. Stop by our Timberlake Road location or any Farmers Bank branch and open an account today, because good habits start early, and we're here to help them grow.
Lunchtime just got an upgrade. Stop by McAdoo for our $8.95 weekday special and grab a legendary sandwich at an unbeatable price. Choose from your favorite classics, the Coney Island, Betty Bob, Ragtime, or Stogie. Classic sandwiches packed with savory meats and flavors in between fresh bread. Make it a meal by pairing your sandwich with a sidekick, a warm cup of soup, or crispy chips. Great food, cozy vibes, and the best deal in town.
It's time to share great food and fun. Just to be there, the only one. Just to be there at Market Dues.
We'll see you at the Dues.
Holes for Heroes is back at the 29th Annual Boonesboro Fire and Rescue Benefit Golf Tournament. Your support goes beyond teeing off Monday, July 20th at the Boonesboro Country Club. It's also sponsoring a hole or lunch, because however you support the event, you're actually helping with key services like continuing education and training, building maintenance, plus gear and equipment, including the new fire truck that's currently being built. Start your support now at BoonesboroFireRescue.org. That's BoonesboroFireRescue.org.
Your insurance company tells you to go to a certain shop. Once they give you the inflated estimate, you think, uh-oh, better get Maaco. For over 50 years, Maaco has been repairing and painting cars. Maaco is not in contract with insurance companies. They work for you. They don't give insurance companies discounts and rebates you'd never get. At Maaco, you'll get an honest assessment of your repair work by trained, certified professionals. You'll get the choice to pay with insurance or out of pocket, whichever makes sense for you. So if you have an insurance claim, get a second opinion at Maaco on Kemper Street in Lynchburg.
VTRN Sports, powered by ESPN Radio, is presented by Tacos Los Amigos on Amherst Highway, Business 29 in Madison Heights.
Hey, this is Virginia Tech analyst and former Hokies tight end Mike Burnham. You're listening to The Fast Lane with Ed Lane and Trey Lyle. Join the chat at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.
Sure, football season is around the corner. We're about a month away from that taking place, and we will have plenty more on that when it comes, but seems like he's embedding himself with a basketball program, which is where we begin in part one of
It's time for your teams and topics. Covering the Commonwealth, a look at teams and topics from around the Commonwealth. Let's start with the JMU Dukes.
Shane_DNR Sports and DNRonline.com for Shane Metlin, who's with us here in the Fast Lane. Shane, great to be speaking with you after you spent last week with the basketball program over at JMU for Preston Spradlin's program, the men's basketball program. I should be more specific. Are they bigger and more athletic than they were last year?
I think so. I mean, especially, outside of the 5 spot, they had, some 6'9" guys last year that could play the 5. They're about the same there this year. But you look at, the 3, the backcourt places, they're going to have a lot of length and I think be able to cause some mismatches there. And then they're not small in the front court either. They got Garrett Sundra, the Notre Dame transfer. He's 6'11". He's not the thickest guy out there, but I think he's putting on some muscle and stuff, and they'll have some guys who can bang underneath. But yeah, I think really it's those other positions. It's the 4, it's the forward positions where I think they're going to look big when they take the court.
Shane, speaking of basketball, and I know this is not JMU directly, but VCU, they are not returning the back end of a home-and-home series, so NC State is not going to go to VCU. That was part of NC State hiring for a year at least. Former VCU coach Will Wade. VCU also is not getting a home date back from the University of Virginia. Does this make scheduling more difficult for JMU and maybe operating under the presumption that they might get trips two power programs, but they're probably not getting them to come to Harrisonburg anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't know if it makes it any more difficult. Frankly, like I'm guessing Preston Spradlin or somebody on his staff was probably on the phone with VCU when they saw those games were canceled, saying, "Hey, we could play you." But it was never really even a possibility that JMU was getting many power programs to come into Harrisonburg to play. But that kind of answers a question you get a lot from JMU fans is how is VCU getting these teams to come play? And the answer is now that they're not. I mean, that's just how much things have changed, that even a program that has been at the level VCU has for so many years is just not getting those games.
Shane Mettlen with us here in the Fast Lane covering the JMU Duke. Shane, great to be speaking with you. These will get more expansive over the next few weeks as we get closer to the start of football season.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Now to UVA.
With Jerry Ratcliffe, veteran reporter for the Virginia Cavaliers, who is with us once again here in the Fast Lane. Jerry, great to be speaking with you. You've got the article up at jerryratcliffe.com with a new 5-for-5 rule and how it could impact Virginia men's basketball in particular. Where's the impact going to be felt more? Virginia men's basketball, Virginia women's basketball, football, or another sport?
Well, I think it's going to help them all. And I think particularly basketball, because there was a couple guys that are like Chase Mallory, for example. You were only going to have him for 3 more years. Now you got a chance to have him for 4 more years, which is kind of like the days of Kihei Clark. If people will remember those, where he broke every record in the book pretty much for games played and minutes played and all sorts of other statistics. So I think a lot of guys that they were counting on having for 1 or 2 more years are going to have for an additional year. And I think in basketball it means a lot more, because just so few guys, and if you've got really good ones, they can make such a huge impact.
How much does that, how much does roster retention, how much do all of those factors contribute to Luke Toburin coming from Longwood, where he worked with Griff Aldrich, ironically to Virginia, where Griff Aldrich used to work, but now leaving, with Toburin now coming and replacing Mike Curtis?
Well, yeah, and I think he learned under Mike Curtis too, which is even a bigger benefit, because Curtis was clearly one of the best in the business, and he helped so many guys develop their bodies over time, like Jay Huff and Mamadi Diakite and some of the other guys. So this guy should be able to step right in and not take a step back or anything like that. I think they'll be able to pick up business as usual.
Hootie, couple more nuggets for you here in the Fast Lane. One, Virginia, they've been on a bit of a recruiting heater. They're picking up all these guys that we saw for Jefferson Forest Cavalier football last year when JF lost to Varina. They've got multiple Varina players that are either enrolling this fall or have committed to the upcoming class for the University of Virginia. But they're at 15 commitments, and it's about the number they had last year. Are they basically done?
They might add a couple more guys, but I think they're basically done. You never really know who they're still in the hunt for. But I don't think they're overly concerned about it, because they've done so well in the portal, and it makes so much sense to go after guys in the portal that I don't think they're overly concerned if they have a huge amount or not. They're ranked 62 in the nation in recruiting, and next to last in the ACC. So anything else they get is probably a bonus. But I don't think that they're overly concerned about it either way or the other.
Your insight is always a bonus. We always appreciate you sharing with us today and every time we chat here in the Fast Lane. Hootie, JerryRatcliffe.com. It's worth a subscription for our audience as well. Hootie, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much, and we look forward to chatting again soon in a couple of weeks.
One note for you, Ed, is Virginia's basketball team surprised us all today and added another recruit for this coming season. 6'6" wing from Germany. Played in their best pro league out there, and is another 3-point shooter that Virginia fans can get excited about. So Odom's European pipeline continues to flow.
You can absolutely interrupt our sign-off if you got that type of breaking news in the future, just so you know.
Okay, I thought you might like that.
We would. I think if not me, our listeners like that. That's what's even more important.
That's right.
Jerry Ratcliffe with us here.
They can read all about it on my site.
Absolutely they can. They should go to jerryratcliffe.com. Hootie, thank you for your time. We'll chat again in a couple of weeks as we start looking ahead to the ACC football kickoff down in Charlotte.
All right, Ed. Thank you. See you next week.
Indeed. Jerry Ratcliffe with us here in the Fast Lane.
Now to
Got to get the voice guy to do it. Hill City FC. We could also say
now to
the World Cup, because we'll touch on both of them right now with Lucas Paulini from Hill City FC. He is their head coach, and he's with us here in the Fast Lane. Lucas, first of all, thank you for taking time for us in the midst of your busy day. Marauders, this past Saturday, July 11th. Close game. Overall, your impressions of that and how the regular season is wrapped up.
Hey, Ed. Good to have me. Thank you for having me again here. We play against Virginia Marauders on the 11th. That should be the last game of the regular season.
Charlottesville is past week.
This past weekend, no, we didn't. It wasn't Charlotte. It was, I even forgot now who we played last weekend. Oh, it was in Charlottesville.
Yes.
Who do we lost? I forgot. You there?
Yep, we're here. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Ed. No, I forgot who we played. That's how much I looked in the past.
So you brought that up, though. Like, coaches have a quicker term memory than people think when it comes to that. What have you taken from all that as you prepare for 2 matches remaining here in the regular season?
Yeah, we got 3 left. So we play tomorrow. We go to Maryland to play Patuxent. Then we have an away game on the 3rd at Lionsbridge, and then we close out the season on the 11th at home against the Virginia Marauders. So 3 games left. Unfortunately, it's the last few games have probably done enough for us to not make the playoffs, but we're still trying to finish on a strong note. We got a lot of players who are still very committed and want us to finish as high as we can.
Lucas Pauling, Hill City FC head coach, who's with us here in the Fast Lane. Lucas, when you're at this point, you know the playoffs are not a realistic goal. What is the message to your team? How do you guide them over these last couple of matches?
Well, I think everybody is here for a reason. Everybody came to Hill City for a reason, and everybody's they're trying to find that reason and push through moments where maybe they feel like the result wouldn't matter as much. But again, for me, there are no friendlies. Every game matters and every session matters. And we got some guys who are getting ready for college. So for them, it's still about being fit, getting healthy, making sure they're still adjusting some smaller parts of their games to get ready for their seasons. Then we have some guys who are looking to get some tryouts after the season, and they need to fine-tune their game and still be sharp, be fit, and be ready for whatever's next. And then we have some young guys who haven't played much this year that they're getting ready for whatever's next for them. So they need some minutes. So managing the roster at this point is what we're doing, and making sure everybody finishes with a great experience and want to come back next summer.
How valuable is it for Hill City FC, Lucas, that you guys get to play on Tuesday, which frees you up for the watch party in downtown Lynchburg on Wednesday for Team USA in the knockout round?
No, it's amazing. I hope we get a good turnout like we did the last time we did it. Hopefully the rain holds up and the weather cooperates a little bit. I know it's going to be a little bit harder this week. But again, last time we went there, it was a couple hundred people, and it was a great time.
Your overall impressions. We're now into the groups or into the knockout stage of the World Cup. We've had matches that have come down to the last couple of minutes or so of stoppage time before going into extra time. Are you expecting this to kind of be the trend from here on? Much more even matches, much tighter, lower scoring, and we get these type of grinded out nail biters toward the end?
Yes, I think once you get to a knockout stage, everybody's trying not to make a mistake. You play every play like it's the last one. Every minute matters, every minute counts. So I think what you start to see is a lot of teams defending with a lot of people, and when you score a goal, it's just going to be very, very difficult to, when you get scored on, it's going to be very difficult to get it back because teams are going to defend with 11 people behind the ball and inside the box. So it's going to make it more difficult to see high-scoring games. I think seeing 1-0, 2-1, it's more likely to happen. But like I said, I think earlier in the show last weekend, I think the better teams are always going to find a way to get through. And I think you saw that today between Japan and Brazil a little bit, where Brazil is still Brazil and in some roles a little bit better than Japan. And I think although it was really close all the way until the end, I think good teams with good players over the long run will find ways to win these games.
Lucas Paulini of Hill City FC with us here in the Fast Lane. Lucas, thank you for taking some time for us. We're grateful to chat. We'd love to chat again.
Sounds good, Ed. Talk to you soon.
Indeed, Lucas Paulini with us here to wrap up part 1 of covering the Commonwealth. When we return, part 2. Speaking of Hill City, Howlers, not FC, the team next door to them over at City Stadium, the complex. Jason Pro will kick off part 2 of covering the Commonwealth. Then Thomas Dunn on NASCAR and Chris Coleman on the Virginia Tech Hokies. All that's still to come here in the Fast Lane.
At Motor Mile Kia on the Sheeler Motor Mile, we're making it happen. Right now is the perfect time to find your next Kia with over 200 new Kia vehicles available to choose from and more arriving daily. We've proudly served Southwest Virginia and surrounding areas for over 50 years. And while we're upgrading our facility with exciting new renovations, we're still here every day with the selection, savings, service, and financing options you expect from Motor Mile Kia. We've got the volume on the Motor Mile, and there's no better place to buy a new Kia. Plus, shop now and enjoy Motor Mile Star benefits, lifetime Virginia state inspections, loaner cars for warranty repairs, convenient drive-in service, and a 48-hour exchange program for added peace of mind. So whether you're shopping for a fuel-saving sedan, a family van, or a brand new SUV, why wait? We're making it happen at Motor Mile Kia on the Sheeler Motor Mile. I-81 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER-1 or shop anytime. We're always open at MotorMileKia.com.
The clock is ticking. Time is running out for Virginia citizens to purchase modern sporting rifles and magazines from Big Boys Guns. Beat the July 1st deadline. Right now, the selection is robust at Big Boys Guns. ARs, AKs, and the most popular handguns will soon be banned from sale in the state of Virginia. Don't wait. Visit Big Boys Guns before the inventory is gone and not allowed to return. Shop 24/7 at BigBoysGuns.com and in store on Route 460 in Blue Ridge.
Guests are great, except unwanted guests. At Specialty Exterminating, we know the difference. Hi, I'm Sabrina Kennan with Specialty Exterminating. We help you keep unwanted pests out of your home. Now we can keep those reptiles away. Our new reptile repellent is the perfect add-on for your pest prevention service. It's pet and people safe, so it's perfect for any homeowner, especially pool owners and homes in wooded and rural areas. Call us so we can repel the reptiles. Specialty Exterminating, your pest prevention partner since 1979.
Big transitions feel like big hurdles. That's why Central Virginia Counseling has 2 dynamic 6-week summer groups for rising 6th and 9th graders packed with essential life skills. Each week targets a new skill for success, tools like organization, time management, task initiation, anxiety reduction techniques, and skills for making friends and communicating well. Through peer connection and expert guidance, students will gain tools to feel capable, connected, and ready for day one. Visit us on Timberlake Road or Wigington Road in Lynchburg or at centralvirginiacounseling.com to learn more.
Hi, I'm Al Billingsley, a board member with CASA of Central Virginia. Children who have experienced abuse or neglect often enter foster care feeling scared, confused, and alone. That's where CASA volunteers step in. We stand behind these children to make sure that their voices are heard in court. CASA is looking for caring adults from our community to serve as volunteer advocates. And as a man, I can tell you we're especially in need more men to step up for these kids. If you're ready to make a difference, learn more at cvcasa.org.
Come celebrate America's 250th with the Howlers at City Stadium Saturday, July 4th, presented by Drain Rangers. Enter the park and get your free patriotic rally towel. Root on the Howlers for a 6:30 p.m. first pitch, and then stay for the only fireworks show in Lynchburg following the game. America's pastime on America's 250th. Tickets are going fast, so get yours now at hchowlers.com and howl out loud.
Hi, this is Zach Mackey, the voice of Virginia Tech men's basketball. You're listening to The Fast Lane with Ed Lane and Trey Lyle. Join the chat at Trey Lyle VT and and Fastlane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.
Was yesterday down in North Carolina. A light at the end of the tunnel. That's what we get to right now in
It's time for your teams and topics. Covering the Commonwealth, a look at teams and topics from around the Commonwealth. Let's start with the Hill City Howlers.
Jason Prill, their play-by-play broadcaster, is with us here in the Fast Lane. Jason, great to be speaking with you. First of all, last night, well, yesterday afternoon, technically, 9-4 victory at Hickory. It snapped the 9-game skid for the Hill City Howlers. Was that a light at the end of the tunnel for Hill City in terms of their ability to snap that losing streak and flip what's going on over the last half of June?
Yeah, it was a long 2-week stretch being on the road, but when you get the chance to come back home, you want to have a little bit of momentum. And the game of baseball, momentum can mean a lot, and so winning Sunday's game and just snapping that losing skid and getting back in the win column and doing it behind a good offensive showing, that just gives you a little bit of hope for this upcoming 2-week homestand. The guys will be back in their own beds. They'll be able to kind of go through a normal rhythm of what a game day would look like. They have access to more of the resources than they would than what's on the road. So it's a good sign that they were able to get that last little victory before coming back home. And this week, there's going to be great crowds, going to be good fun. And so that's just going to be another motivator. So not only is it a light at the end of the tunnel, it brings, a momentum swing. It also provides a launching pad for what's going to be a great week this week.
You mentioned the offense. Prior to Sunday, they really struggled. They had not scored more than 4 runs at any point except the opener against Hickory about a week ago. How much does that give the offense a level of, okay, now you start to see that bat being put on the ball in contact and get moving, and that offense can kind of help to carry the day as it had the early portion of much of this season?
Well, a game like that is kind of like hitting a free throw when you're ice cold from the field. It doesn't guarantee that things are going to get better, but it does give you a little bit of confidence that you're turning in the right direction. It means you're seeing the ball well. It means you're catching it out of the hand. They did it at a crucial time. Their backs were against the wall, and oftentimes young teams can start pressing. We saw a little bit of that earlier in the series, but Sunday they relaxed and they let the game come to them, and that's a good sign. So it's not a guarantee that things are going to turn the corner offensively, but just like when that free throw goes in on a cold stretch in a basketball game, it's a good sign that things are going to start heating up eventually.
Jason Prill, broadcaster, Hill City Howlers, with us here in the Fast Lane. Big week over there at City Stadium. It is Independence Day week, and of course, everyone knows about fireworks on Independence Day, July 4th. Get your tickets at hchowlers.com. But Friday, 7-3, the big 7-3, patriotic cap giveaway, and then Sunday, ice cream jersey giveaway. What in the world is ice cream jersey giveaway?
Yeah, it's summer, and at least one of my favorite snacks, not just in the summer, but all year long, is ice cream. And so we're doing a fun little promotion specifically for the kids, since it's Kids Fun Day on Sunday. So the kids that come to the ballpark will get a free ice cream themed jersey. And you can check it out on our website at hchowlers.com and go to the promotions tab and get a look at it. But it looks just like an ice cream cone. And so it's just a fun little specialty novelty jersey that the kids in our community will be able to rock. And nothing screams summer like ice cream. So it's something you can wear all summer long. But this whole week, you mentioned it, the 4th of July, patriotic cap on the 3rd. Some fun promotions, and we want everybody out at the ballpark. Nothing screams America like baseball, and it's America 250, so it's going to be a fun time this week, specifically this weekend, especially on Saturday with our fireworks show. We have a lot of great things in store.
I scream, you scream, Jason Prill screams for ice cream over at City Stadium. This week in particular, Jason, thank you for making time for us today. We'll see you over at the stadium this week.
Absolutely, anytime, Ed.
Now to NASCAR.
Thomas Dunn, frontstretch.com NASCAR reporter. He was on site at Sonoma for SVG's latest road course victory. Was that a legitimate challenge, though, Thomas, from Chase Briscoe to Shane Van Gisbergen?
I think it was. I think you have to consider the fact that Shane has been beaten down the competition in certain respects at road courses in the past. You think of even this year, Watkins Glen won that one running away. Last year dominated Sonoma and really beat down the field to the extent of Chase Briscoe also finishing second. But we weren't having that type of same conversation that we're having right now. Mexico City last year, same deal. So it was a legitimate challenge. Shane Van Gisbergen mentioned post-race that he was losing the rear tires and that the car wasn't holding up to snuff. And if there were a couple extra laps up, the 19 would have had a really good chance to get him. And I saw Briscoe kind of run him down from about 3-4 seconds back. So I was really impressed, all things considered. And I thought Briscoe, regardless of result, put in a really amicable effort to try and get up there to defeat the 97.
So you mentioned that. Is the field catching up to Shane Van Gisbergen on road races?
I think it's a little bit of both because Trackhouse as a whole has not brought a ton of speed to the track, I think, from a big picture lens. So it's not like days of old where you got your specific road course prepped cars with different ways of setting it up versus, your run-of-the-mill oval cars. Like these are the spec next-gen cars. You got what you got. And Trackhouse holistically has pretty much had a bunch of boats this year. So I think you have the extent of, yes, the field is getting better. And I look at guys like Briscoe, Ty Gibbs, I think, showed some great speed the other day. And some of the other guys who have been able to just nip and tuck at him. I thought Michael McDowell looked pretty good in the next gen era on road courses as a whole. So when I look at all of that to say, I think it's a mixture of two things at the same time, and guys improving, but also Trackhouse needing to step up their game a little bit as well.
As far as going forward, are you confident that SVG takes this momentum and is able to hold it steady to get into the chase, or is this more of a one-off and he's going to be buried because of what happened at San Diego and the fact that Trackhouse just doesn't have a lot of speed outside of it?
I think you have to take it on a week-to-week basis. I think we've reached the point where I think it's too early to just holistically dismiss SVG on ovals. I think last year, even though he didn't get the result and got wrecked out of it, but legitimately running top 10 at New Hampshire last year. So I think there are bits and bits. Got a top 10 at Kansas after having to go down the pit lane at the start of with the pit road penalty. So I think of just those little small data points and thinking, Shane Van Gisbergen is learning to hold his own on some of these ovals. And while there are definitely going to be some potential rough ones in line, I think of Iowa, like last year, that's a place where he's kind of yet to figure it out a little bit, had a bit of a rough go last year. So I think it's important to not necessarily to play both sides, so to speak, but it's not all immediate doom and gloom, despite the fact that he's probably not going to be in victory lane.
Thomas Dunn of FrontStretch.com is stopping by with us today here in the Fast Lane. He was out at Sonoma this past weekend. The rest of the drivers that performed well, do you see momentum building for Hendrick because of Kyle Larson's run, for Joe Gibbs because Ty Gibbs got back on the right foot and Chase Briscoe was the one hunting down SVG? Where do you see something that we saw this past weekend and say that is transferable, at least getting the ball rolling in the right direction for a team or a driver?
So I'll start with someone a little bit behind them just because he just needed something to go well. And anyone who's been watching the sport over the last month will understand. And that's Connor Zilic. Finishing 7th, prior to Sonoma in 4 of his last 5 races, he had finished 37th or worse. And you just think of the toll that takes not only on a team, a driver, but the fan base and everyone who's trying to cover what's supposed to be one of the best high-profile kind of up-and-comers in this sport. It was a real rough go. So just to see him kind of get across the line, run, get up to the top 5, and eventually hold on after the tires burned off on the last run, take home his first career Cup top 10. He needed something good to happen, and absolutely did, and I will co-sign. Ty Gibbs and Kyle Larson, Gibbs sweeping the stages at Sonoma, and really had a really fast car and coming back from the pack and getting up towards the front both times, getting shunted into the teens or 20s and getting back up there quite a ways before having to either flip the stage or running towards the end of the race. And then Larson, I talked to him prior to Sonoma. He was in the Bay Area for a media tour, and he was like, this is after Watkins Glen when Hendrick was missing in action. We got work to do, and that they've done over these last couple weeks. And, the 5 team, while Larson hasn't gotten to victory lane, you just look at the recent run of form and all the great results they've had. I think Kyle Larson will be back in victory lane before we know it.
Thomas Dunn, he gives us a victory of great insight and analysis from FrontStretch.com. We are at Fast Lane, Ed Lane, however you listen to podcasts, as well as on the socials. They are at frontstretch.com and Front Stretch Podcast Network for all the recaps, including the Stock Car Scoop to recap what happened this past weekend with Thomas Dunn and Danny Peters joining Eric Schneck on that. Thomas, thank you for your time. We're grateful to have you in the Fast Lane and look forward to linking up maybe in a couple of weeks, good Lord willing, when you're down in Charlotte for the ACC kickoff. As odd as that is to say to a Cal Golden Bears reporter.
That's just how it is in today's age of college athletics. But a pleasure to be on here, and I appreciate you having me on, Ed.
Our pleasure indeed.
And last but not least, or maybe least, the Virginia Tech Hokies.
With Chris Coleman of TechSideline.com. Chris, you have a fantastic article that's out, and I'm not talking about the one that I have not read because I can't actually give you any praise on the one about the future scheduling that's at TechSideline.com. I do have that on my to-read list, by the way, tonight or tomorrow. But I'm talking about the one after Brian White was hired as athletic director at Virginia Tech and a ton of bullet points. I got 5 of them. One of them, we're grateful to have you in the Fast Lane, is there were somewhere between 20 and 30 candidates for this job. You like to use the phrase committable offers. How committable and serious were these candidates at Virginia Tech vetted before ultimately settling on the FAU AD Brian White?
I think I'm guessing like for any search like this, the committee or the person doing the hiring, whatever, in this case, a committee, they probably had a pretty good idea of like their top candidates going into it. And I'm not going to say that, the whole situation is just doing things by the book, because you never know, somebody else could blow you away once you learn more about them. But I do think they probably had a pretty decent idea of their top group going into it. But maybe not. I've never been involved in one of those things personally, but I do think he was definitely on their list from the very beginning for sure.
One of his tasks, Brian White's, is going to be finding ways to create additional revenue opportunities as the new athletic director at Virginia Tech. When White was at FAU, he did that through naming rights to stadiums. Is that going to be such a challenge at Virginia Tech that they have to build new stadiums? They can't necessarily afford to because the resources have to go elsewhere. How does all that get balanced out with football, basketball, baseball, and other venues in Blacksburg?
It's hard to say. The baseball stadium was named English Field at Atlantic Union Bank Park there for almost a decade. And I had somebody from Atlantic Union Bank Park tell me that they didn't renew their sponsorship of it because they didn't have primary sponsorship rights. And from what they were told by Virginia Tech, that the way contracts were written, not only for English Field, but for Lane Stadium and Castle Coliseum as well, is that the families those buildings are named after had primary naming rights, which means, it could never be like a NVIDIA Stadium, right? Like it's always got to be something Lane Stadium or Lane Stadium something, right? That's what I'm told by somebody who was involved in the baseball deal, and that he was told that group was told by Tech that it was kind of the same for the other arenas as well. That's why, it was Carillion Court at the Castle Coliseum there for so many years, rather than Carillion Coliseum, right? And I believe that deal has expired too. So, I think if you look around the country, I mean, that's why Alabama Stadium is still Bryant-Denny Stadium. Like Kyle Field is still Kyle Field. I mean, I'm sure programs like that, if they could sell naming rights, could make a lot of money. But I'm guessing a lot of those contracts back in the day, decades ago, when those stadiums were built or when the original naming rights deals were agreed to, that there's probably issues with that for a lot of schools. Otherwise, we would see more naming rights deals. But for new stadiums and new arenas, it's not an issue. But I do believe that it is for a lot of the older ones.
That is what we would call healthy speculation from Chris Coleman of TechSideline.com. He's with us in the Fast Lane on W227 BG Timberlake, WVGA Milledgeford, WMNA, Gretna, Danville, Southside, and the Virginia Talk Station app or the VTRN Sports app if you want the easier route to communicate and listen with us there at TechSideline.com, socials, and wherever you listen to podcasts. CC, you also mentioned in that article, you're in favor of replacing Castle Coliseum rather than renovating it. How likely is that to actually happen?
Oh, I do think it'll happen at one point. I just don't know when. You know, they already had plans on the table to renovate it, and then, you know, COVID hit, and then NIL and, you know, paying players and everything came right after that. So that put those plans on hold. But, you know, I think White is better at those things than his predecessor. I think the entire athletic department will be staffed better now. So I think like something like that will happen. It's not going to happen next year, you know, or anything like that. But I do think that's something that will happen, and it's something that needs to happen. I mean, they don't even have hot water and bathroom sinks in Castle Coliseum, for goodness sake, you know. And then there's no reason to spend, you know, $70 million renovating it when you probably can't sell primary naming rights to it. You know, you need an arena where you can maximize revenue, and I don't think renovated maximizes revenue. I think a new arena would, though.
CC, the other parts of your great article at techsideline.com on Mike White and what he brings as the new athletic director at Virginia Tech mentioned, and I'm going to use your phrase, we're closer to the end of the Mike Young era than we are to the beginning. I have thought for a while, this looks like a coach that he's trying his best, but, I mean, gosh, it looks like it's wearing him out, this current landscape without regulations and changes. Was what we saw with Dusty May, got in Michigan to the championship, and then bounced for the Dallas Mavericks to the NBA reportedly because there's just no structure in college, and there's at least some in the NBA, even if the players have all the power. Is that more of an indication that, you know, what we've got with Mike Young and other coaches, we may just be in for this in all of college sports, which is coaches are there for a shorter period of time, they do the job, and then they're on to something else until we get something more stabilized?
Yeah, I mean, I think every coach is going to view things differently. Obviously, we've seen Dusty May move to the NBA. We saw Tony Bennett just out and out retire, even though despite the fact that, you know, with his age, he was probably in his coaching prime, right? He just didn't want to deal with it anymore. And the fact of the matter is these guys have made plenty of money and they don't have to keep coaching if they don't want to. So I do think Mike Young is a guy who is probably tiring of the landscape a little bit, but I do think he wants to go out stronger than, you know, the Tech was 2 years ago. And I think he had his chance this past year, and they had a bunch of injuries and lost a bunch of games late. But, yeah, you know, like I said, I mean, I think we're closer to the end of his era than to the beginning. But, you know, White is a guy with plenty of experience hiring basketball coaches. He's a basketball-focused guy, really. You know, he joked during his press conference that he and his brothers grew up you know, with the dream of playing in the NBA one day. And obviously that didn't happen for any of them. But, you know, his brother's the head basketball coach at Georgia, and before that was at Florida. So that's a family that understands the basketball landscape very well.
Last one for Chris Coleman of TextLiveline.com, and we are grateful for his time with us today here in the Fast Lane. CC, the Virginia Tech football coaching schedule, you have that nugget up as well because your colleague Andy Pitter joked about whether Tennessee would make its way onto the schedule. A lot of Tech fans, you and me, I would say less of a fan, but in the media, I'd love to see West Virginia on the schedule in some capacity. Neither one of them are there right now. Is the reality of Virginia Tech's schedule what it's going to be for most programs, which is 9-game conference schedule, one power program, one group of 5, one AA FCS program?
Maybe. I think the fact that the top 4 leagues have all gone to 9-game schedules have complicated things, because when you get in your year where you play 5 road conference games, you don't want to play your Power 4 non-conference game on the road that year, right? At least you would like to avoid it. I mean, right now, I think in 2032, Virginia Tech is, you know, we don't know that they're going to play 5 ACC games that year, but, you know, if it continues, you know, like this year, every other year, they probably will. Well, they're also at Wisconsin that year, so that's a more difficult schedule in 2032. So, in effect, you know, and it's the same thing for other schools. You know, they're going to want their schedule to line up properly as well. So, in effect, you knock your options down by half, and then the fact that the Big Ten has basically said, you know, yeah, we're not going to require our teams to play a Power 4 non-conference game. So you're going to see some of those Big Ten teams play Power 4 teams, and then some of them won't. So I think just the way that the conferences have set up their league scheduling these days makes it more difficult. You can't just snap your fingers and say, oh, yeah, let's sign West Virginia. Well, West Virginia's already got their long-term series with Pitt signed through 2036. are they going to want to add a second Power 4 team to their non-conference schedule? I kind of doubt that because I don't think most teams would do. So there's going to be a lot of restructuring going on. In some cases, Virginia Tech has two. I think in 4 future seasons, Virginia Tech has 2 Power 4 non-conference opponents scheduled. And I expect that to drop to 1 because you don't want to overburden yourself when everybody's goal is to make the playoffs.
Chris Coleman, TechSideline.com with us here in the Fast Lane. Chris, we'll wrap it up on this with the last one. You mentioned it, dropping it down to 1. Do you see these games against teams like Arizona and BYU also being dropped and they become more regionalized, or does that even matter?
Yeah, I think there's a good possibility that games like that are dropped. In the article, once you read it, you'll be able to see what I mean. Like, I think for both of those schools, for part of their deals, they're one of 2 Power 4 teams that Virginia Tech plays in any given year, and so some of those are going to have to be sacrificed. Ole Miss is a game. It might have to be sacrificed. It's going to be interesting to see what the conference landscape looks here in about 5 years when these TV contracts start expiring, whether there's any more movement. Penn State has no non-conference games scheduled past 2028 right now because the Big Ten hasn't given them a conference schedule past 2028. So they're waiting to see what their conference schedule looks like before they schedule their non-conference opponents. So, it's just everything's a mess in college football these days, and I think the change to non-conference games has made things even more of a mess as far as scheduling goes.
Chris Coleman, TechSideline.com, stopping by with us today here in the Fast Lane. Chris, we appreciate your giving us an idea of where you see these things going with Virginia Tech. Thank you so much for giving us an overview of all that. We will check out the article at TechSideline.com on the future of their scheduling and enjoy the one on Athletic Director Brian White, and highly recommend it to our audience.
Hey, thanks, Ed. Appreciate it, man.
Indeed. Chris Coleman with us here in the Fast Lane. By the way, to get an usher on for a moment. No Tech Sideline guests likely next week, at least for us in the Fast Lane. JJ and Trey are going to be holding it down, so they might have one. I will not have one because, well, I got some family business to take care of next week, but we'll see plenty of them the following week with the ACC kickoff and more. That does it for us today in the Fast Lane. Tomorrow, JJ and Trey the next couple of days. You ready, JJ?
Absolutely, Ed. Born ready.
You excited for it?
Oh, yeah. I'm super excited.
I'm excited to hear how it goes. If I'm not listening live, I'll be listening at Fast Lane Ed Lane on the podcast platforms. In the meantime, on to Freddie and Harry in progress.
Was talking about for John Morant, that upside to my